Red alert, red alert. All hands to the battle station. This is episode 1, the Jem'Hadar Battleship, being recorded on June 25th, 2015, and released June 26th, 2015. So, hello there everyone, and welcome to Battle Station. So, this is a new podcast of my own design, and what we're going to do is we're going to take ships that are maybe not seeing as much use as some of us might like, and going ahead and seeing if we can get some use out of them. So, let me talk a little bit about the format of the podcast. I'm going to try and keep this pretty short. Definitely not going to be as long as something like State of the Federation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mention the ship we're going to be working with. Then I'm going to discuss what I see as its upsides and its downsides. Maybe a little bit of the history of the ship, if it's one that is fairly well known and has some pedigree to it. And then I'm going to walk you through the process of how I put together a ship that may not have the best abilities, but I still want it to have something to synergize particularly well. So, a little bit about me, if you don't know. Hi, my name's Tucker. I'm one of the co-hosts of State of the Federation, and if you're a fan, don't worry, that's not going to change. This is just a little side project. I've been playing since late in the Dominion War. Lord, it's been a while. I did very well at the Colorado Regionals, not without some controversy. If the Wharf ruling about how battle points ties are calculated had come out about a month earlier, I would have locked up collective series by the second OP, but I didn't. And since lately, I have mostly just been doing coverage of the game via State of the Federation and doing some write-ups and some tweeting for Worlds. So that's a little bit about me. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first ship. So the first ship we're going to be working with is the Jem'Hadar Battleship. Now, if you're not familiar with this beauty, let me tell you a little bit about her. The Jem'Hadar Battleship is a Dominion ship, obviously. It's a generic. It costs 34 points. We're using the generic, so it's not unique. It has 6 attack, 0 agility, 7 hull, 4 shields. The slots are tech, weapon, weapon, crew, crew. I'm going to refer to that as TWWCC at times. It has a 90-degree front arc and no rear arc. It has, for its actions, scan, battle station, target lock, and its maneuver dial is interesting to say the least. It's got green 1, 2, and 3 forward. It's got white 1 through 4 banks, 4 straight and a 5 straight, and it's got red hard 3 turns. So this is, well, I'll wait until I get to talk about the ship's disadvantages before I talk more about the dial. This ship was suggested by Will Holsclaw, and I'm going to take him up on it just because I have a fondness for this thing. So, this was the first ship in the game to have 6 attack dice. And at the time, that was a big freaking deal. But it saw a lot of play quickly simply because, hey, 6 attack dice. But what folks quickly figured out is 6 attack dice is nice, but it's really hard sometimes to keep people in arc with a movement dial this bad. Now, for a while that was mitigated using a card named Dorsal Weapons Array, but that sort of fell out of favor after a while, especially with the Borg coming in. However, now that the Borg have been nerfed somewhat, maybe it's time to take another look at this ship. But let's go over the advantages and the disadvantages before we get started. Now, obviously, one of the main advantages here is 6 attack. There has not been a card printed yet, a ship printed yet, with more than 6 attack. 11 natural durability. That's quite a lot. It does come with a tech slot. That's also nice. 2 crew is not terrible, especially for a ship of this size. It has a decent action bar. It can't evade, worth anything, but it can take a battle stations, which is one of the most important quality increasing abilities. A ship that has a natural battle stations is just flat out going to be better off than a lot of other ships. So we have that advantage. Let's talk about the disadvantage. So there are a lot of disadvantages to this ship, unfortunately. Number one, it has 0 agility. This isn't a huge deal. Obviously, the Borg have dominated for months while having 0 agility, but I am being thorough here. Its slots are, in general, a little disappointing. Tech is good, 2 crew is fine, 2 weapons is not really necessary, and the problem is, at this point, many of the best many of the best upgrades in the game are going to be crew and tech. So only 3 slots between the two of those is not so great, especially because it can't take systems upgrade, which is of course a Federation only card. Speaking of which, this build is going to be penalty pure. Will just asked for Jem'Hadar Battleship. He didn't give me any other restrictions. The only restriction I'm going to hold myself to for every episode is the WizKids suggested format. I'm not going to put more than 50 points on a ship, and if I were building a fleet, which I'm probably not going to be doing that much, I'm not going to go over 120. But I am going to keep the 120 point limit in mind in terms of what other ships I might put this next to. Okay, the last and biggest disadvantage is the 90-degree front arc with no rear arc would be a big enough disadvantage on its own. I am not fond of what I call 90-0 ships. In other words, a 90-degree front arc and no rear arc at all. But marry that to the worst movement dial in the game. I cannot emphasize enough how bad a movement dial that does not let you turn around easily in any way at all can really be. There have been a lot of attempts to solve this with fleet captains or Admiral Forrest. Those are all good ideas, but here's my list of goals. The best part of this ship is easily the 6 attack dice and the native battle stations. So I'm going to try to build a ship that capitalizes on those advantages, i.e. high attack dice and natural quality, while trying to mitigate at least some of the disadvantages here, not optimal slots and a 90-0R combined with a bad movement dial. If we can fix at least one of those last things, I'm going to be happy. So, let's get started. The first thing I always want to do when I'm dealing with a high attack build is look for cards that will increase my quality further. Okay, that's generally going to be captains these days. So on my short list of captains, I have Gul Dukat, who can give you a battle station so that your basic ship can take the target lock. Picard, for the same reason, though he can also give you the battle stations if you want to take the target lock with the base. Mr. Spock, for the same reason. Captains that give you a natural reroll, such as Tactical Drone, Worf. Some of the other options include the Mirror Tomalek that was recently previewed, but we're not going to go there because that requires an action, and as you see, our main problem is that we're going to be action starved. So, there are 2 ways to go about fixing the arc versus maneuverability problem. The first is to add maneuverability. That's actually going to be pretty easy. Putting Admiral Forrest on here, or an Independent Fleet Captain Federation, means it's very easy to add a 1 turn to this dial, but those don't have to go on this ship in order to be used. So I'm actually not going to go that route today. If you're building a fleet and you want to include today's build in it, I highly, highly recommend that you run at least one of those, possibly both. But for now, let's just focus on the other aspect, which is the arc. Now, a 90-0 arc is pretty terrible. But fortunately, Dominion at this point has one of the best tools to help mitigate that. Now, basically, most range 3 360-degree firing arcs are gone. The Borg were the ones that had the most commonly, and while they can still use them with secondary weapons, and magnetometric guided charges is a heck of a threat in today's meta, generally speaking, the best 360 left is actually in the Dominion faction, which is the aft weapons array off of the Reklar set. It's a cost 4 weapon that attacks with 4 dice, range 1 to 3. It disables to attack. You can only use it to attack somebody outside your forward firing arc, and you can only put it on a Dominion ship with a hull value of 4 or greater. Well, fortunately for us, the Battleship is sitting there with a pretty fat hull of 7. So we slapped this puppy right on there for a total of 38 points so far. Okay, here's the deal. We have 12 points left to solve the problem of it's going to take an action every single turn to re-enable this weapon. Well, what do we do about that? Well, here's the thing. There is a very simple combo that a lot of folks have seen in their meta that allows you to re-enable crew every single turn without an action. That is the Phlox Beverly Crusher combo. Phlox is a 2-point Doctor Federation from the Enterprise NX01 expansion that says at any point during the activation phase you may disable him to re-enable all your other crew. Beverly Crusher says you may disable this card to remove a disabled token from another crew at the time it disables. Effectively, the way Worf rule it, that's more or less what the wording would be. So, given this, can we combine this with anything else to increase the action efficiency of our weapon attacks? Well, there's also a Federation crew named Loger, 2 points. He's from the Excelsior expansion, and he says, when your ship fires a weapon upgrade that requires you to disable it, you may disable Loger instead of that weapon upgrade. Okay, that's great. Except now, we've run up against one of the problems of the Jem'Hadar battleship. We need 3 crew slots to make this work, and we only have 2. Well, what can be done about that? One of the best ways to add crew slots is via a captain, but I'm actually not going to take that route for the simple fact that I'm actually going to want to use that captain slot to increase quality even further. So what are my other options? Well, at this point we're considering 3 Federation crew, or thereabouts, on this ship with only 12 points remaining. That probably means that our resource is going to be spent on Officer Exchange Program, and that is the route we're going to go. Officer Exchange Program is a resource from, I believe, A Matter of Honor that allows you to choose 2 factions. For each faction you chose, if you don't pay faction penalties for assigning a crew of one faction to a ship of the other. If you assign a captain or an admiral from one faction onto a ship of the other, not only do you pay the faction not pay the faction penalty, but you get a 1-point discount on the total cost of a captain or admiral. Obviously, this has some really strong interactions, and one of them is going to be getting all of this crew under the 50-point cap. But wait, you say, we're still short a crew slot. Well, here's what we're going to do. There's another variant of the Phlox Crusher combo that has sort of fallen out of favor because generally speaking it's going to be more expensive. That is the combination of William T. Riker off the Enterprise E and the Doctor from Voyager. William T. Riker is a 5-point crew upgrade that says add 1 crew slot to your upgrade bar. After you move, you may disable this card to perform the action on one of your crew, talent, or tech upgrades, or your captain's action as a free action. What the Doctor says is action, remove all technically the Doctor can go in a crew or a tech slot. He says action, remove all disabled tokens from your crew upgrades. So obviously this combination, along with Loger, allows us to re-enable Loger every single turn as a free action, meaning that we can effectively enable aft weapons array every single turn as a free action. So I'm going to add on my captain, which is going to be Mr. Spock, to get that extra target lock, and now I've got 6 dice of attack with battle stations and target lock, and 4 dice of attack anywhere outside that front 90. So I'm not helpless if somebody does manage to outmaneuver me, which, let's face it, is probably not going to be that hard. But wait, Tucker, I hear you saying, metaphorically speaking, that doesn't fit, and you're right. Even with the discount to Mr. Spock, making him only 3 points, you end up with Loger at 2, the Doctor at 3, and William T. Riker at 5, for a total of 51 points on the ship when you include the aft weapons array. What do we do? Well, one of the main reasons I wanted to do this show was to have to dig deeper and give some cards another look. The Doctor is a less efficient version of Phlox, so he's not seeing play today. But here's the thing. You only need to re-enable 2 crew upgrades every turn with this build, those being William T. Riker and Loger. By the way, you get the crew slot from William T. Riker that lets you fit Loger on there. William T. Riker effectively doesn't take a slot because he takes a crew slot and then he provides one. That's the major advantage of using Riker over the Phlox Crusher combination, which is of course cheaper. So, here's the thing. There is a less efficient version of the Doctor out there, and that is Leonard McCoy off the Enterprise refit. Leonard McCoy does exactly what the Doctor does for only 2 crew members at a time. Technically speaking, he says remove 2 disabled upgrade tokens from your crew upgrades, but no upgrade can have more than 1 disabled token on it at the same time. So, the important thing to note is that McCoy is 1 point cheaper than the Doctor, meaning that our final build for this ship is 34 points for the battleship itself, captained by Mr. Spock at 37 total points, an aft weapons array 41 total points, William T. Riker 46 total points, Leonard McCoy 48 total points, and Loger for exactly 50 points. Now, this build still has some serious problems. The maneuverability is not great, and that's why, even though the resource slot is taken, I highly recommend that you include Maxwell Forrest somewhere else in your fleet. Maxwell Forrest is a Federation admiral that says, action, fleet action, so anyone within range of a ship can take it, perform an additional 1 maneuver, straight, bank, or turn. Worf has ruled, I should say, that the WizKids official rules forum has ruled that you can perform those actions, those movements, even if they are not on your dial. And what that means is the Jem'Hadar battleship in a fleet with Admiral Forrest can, if necessary, take an action to turn around, essentially turning that into sort of an auxiliary power token, but you can still take your free actions such as Mr. Spock and re-enabling the aft weapons array, which means that all you lose by using a Maxwell Forrest is the battle stations modifier. Now that hurts a lot, obviously, but you're still rolling 4 to 6 dice, depending on whether you're in arc or not, against the enemy with target lock quality, which is not bad. It's still serviceable. It's not quite up to my standard. I consider a quality attack to be 4 or more dice with target lock and battle stations, but it might get you there. Other things you may want to include are the classic Romulan science vessel, which is 12 points, with Martok, which is 4. I should say 6. Martok 5, which is a 5-point Klingon captain, 8 skill, which allows you to take an extra action if you have a lower captain skill, which obviously Spock does. That would allow you to use Forrest in a fleet and not have to worry about your dice quality. You could also include a Borg ship would not be a bad complement to this. A fleet of Gaylors if you want to keep it Cardassian. There are a lot of options you have to expand on this build. It's a fairly simple build. This build is only out there to roll attack dice. That's it. Very simple. No tricks, no shenanigans. Just every single turn, if necessary, get that aft weapons array on up there, and just try to blast away with that 6 dice when you do happen to be in arc. Anyway, so that has been the Jem'Hadar Battleship build on our podcast today. So thank you very much for joining me. Please go ahead and give us good reviews on iTunes, of course. You can also look around for me in the Star Trek Attack Wing community on Facebook or on Board Game Geek. Either way, you'll see me post. My icon is a little, on Board Game Geek, is a little guy in a hat with a mustache on a horse with a Borg eyepiece. It's fairly distinctive. It tends to stick out. You can contact me through any of these methods if you want to contribute an idea for the next battle station as to what we should do in terms of our next ship. But until then, thank you very much for listening. Stand down, red alert, and secure from Battle Station.